Heyo, review family, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morris, the review guy reviewing music for the love of music, and I'm back again to bring you another video, and in this one I'm covering the new Invent Animate record entitled Greyview. So anyone that has been following the channel for a little bit of time will know that I've been covering a lot of the singles from this record in my series Track Review, hailing Invent Animate as one of the most interesting Djent bands, one of the most forward-thinking Djent bands on the scene right now. And yeah, I know I'm just some dickweed with a camera and an opinion, but can I just say that Everchanger and Stillworld are two of the best Djent albums of the 2010s, with the incorporations of ambient music into it. I don't know, I thought they were good. If one thing was for certain from the singles that were released in anticipation for this record, it was Invent Animate was taking more of a blunt tone, and I pointed that out in a lot of my track reviews. It's pretty undeniable that comparatively speaking with their other releases, this album was shaping up to be something that was going to be more of a straightforward take on Djent. And with Ben English leaving the band, founding member, longtime vocalist, permanent vocalist, and Marcus Vik taking his position, there were a lot of question marks going into this album as well. But as more and more singles were releasing and people were finally starting to realize, okay, this is not just good, this is really kick-ass, to the point to where this could be their best album. And with that being said, even though I love those two albums that they've released prior to this is their best album. I think this review, admittedly, will be a little bit more cut and dry than the usual. Usually I like to break down tracks, usually I like to go down the line and talk about influences, but I feel like this is so on the nose that there's not much to dissect. And that's not to sell the album short by saying nothing's going on. That's the thing. There's a lot going on. It is a Djent album that I don't know how you could want more from. Not only did I leave this record over and over and over feeling satisfied, but gratified. I mean, this record is full of beautiful, cascading riffs, but they also have the chuggier bits. The breakdowns are not too mathematical, not too technical, they're right to the point. The mix on this album is absolutely beautiful. Each sound is perfectly audible in the mix. Nothing drowns anything out, and this has some of the best bass work of a Djent album that I've heard in a hot minute. And on the surface, this album feels a lot more like other contemporary metalcore bands that you can find on Tragic Hero Records, and some of the older early 2010 Djent bands such as Era's release, Impulse, not so much Augment, but Impulse. Only I believe this album, and I feel like it's just because of the sands of time, has a better production style than what was on Impulse. That sounded very chunky and in many ways raw. And I think the comparisons with Era don't necessarily have to stop there. I have pointed out that they do sound a lot like early Era, they do sound a lot like mid-era Born of Osiris. I'm talking around Tomorrow We Die Live and Soul Sphere, not so much The Discovery. They have a way of either starting tracks full to the brim, straight in your face, pounding, and also building up with melodicism. It's like the antithesis of each other when you go from a track like Cloud Cascade to Monarch. Monarch thrusts you in with this tapping Djent riff, whereas Cloud Cascade has this drifting, almost ambient, post-rock sounding build-up. And it's tracks and moments like this that remind me that this album isn't full of discrepancies so much as dichotomies. While there is a lot of blunt tracks on this record, they do a nice job of padding it along in a way that doesn't make all these tracks just blend together, but still make it like one album. This album doesn't have an issue with blurring together in a haze, and considering it almost hits the 50-minute mark, good job. Tip of the hat to the band for that. Because obviously my opinion doesn't necessarily mean that much in the grand scheme of things, but when I hear a good piece of music, a good piece of art in one of these genres that I hold really dear to my heart after hearing hundreds of records in that style, and I hear a band that is not only handling that genre with finesse, but the utmost careful attention to each little minor detail and making their tracks sound great from a compositional standpoint, from a production standpoint, from a playing like a technical standpoint, I notice it. It's something that I take note of. And this is the type of album that I just really think is solid. Is it game-changing? Is it going to be the type of album that 10, 15, 20 years down the road, people say, I want to be like that Invent Animate album? I can't say that. I can't necessarily say that it is groundbreaking or game-changing. But what I can say is the band did a great job of cradling this genre at the breast and feeding it until it became a monster of an album. There's really no lull lulls. And it's a metalcore album. Of course there's no lulls. I'm not saying lulls from a sound point of view. I'm saying lulls in a songwriting point of view. You can be extremely heavy but still have no substance to you. I can't tell you how many times I've heard noise grind records, gore grind records, power violence records that strike up so much noise and so much havoc but do jack shit. And I know that's harsh to say, but you can make a lot of noise but say a whole lot of nothing. I mean, I think funny enough, my least favorite track is Shapeshifter with Garrett Russell of Silent Planet. I love his work in Silent Planet, they're a great band. This track to me just came off as, in my opinion, the weakest. And it's of no fault of its own, it's just sitting up against all of these juggernauts that it just comes out the other side sounding a little bit weaker and by no means unlistenable. It's still a very solid track. I will say that the absence of a lot of the more ambient sections and a lot of the different influences that went into their sound was duly noticed, and I kind of miss that to some degree. I miss some of the more straightforward ambient interludes and ambient bits of the instrumentation. It's still present here in trace elements. You can see it on tracks like Cloud Cascade. I mean, it's impossible not to hear that drifting melancholic instrumental. Not to mention that introduction is one of the most beautiful things on the whole record, and it's hitting up against a lot of really beautiful things on this record. So if you want a Djent album that doesn't go too overwrought, that doesn't go too cheesy with the machismo, is very blunt but not necessarily as dynamic as the other two Invent Animate records, this album has the technicality without going above and beyond with the pastiche to make you feel like you're listening to every other Djent band. It doesn't feel like regurgitated filth, it doesn't feel like every other band you know and hold dear, but it's close enough to the bands like you love, Born of Osiris, Era, Veil of Maya, Periphery, that you're gonna feel right at home with this record, because I sure did. I'm going to be giving this album an 8 out of 10. And that is a wrap. Have you heard this new Invent Animate record, Greyview? If you have, let me know in the comment section below what you thought about it. I would love to discuss the record with you. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, the Review Guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.